What happens when Britain's biggest TV stars lose everything? Not just the fame, but the money, the careers, and the lives they thought would last forever. One beloved children's presenter ended up driving a taxi after entertaining millions. A Saturday night television icon watched a fortune disappear. Another comedy legend died so forgotten that fewer than 10 people attended the funeral. From bankruptcy and crushing debt to addiction, illness, and careers destroyed by typecasting, these are the shocking downfalls of Britain's most famous television legends. Stay until the end, because the number one story is the most dramatic financial collapse of them all, and it proves that television fame can vanish far faster than anyone imagines. Let's begin. Geoffrey Hayes' Rainbow's Farewell. For nearly 2 decades, millions of children saw a friendly, dependable figure standing beside Zippy, George, and Bungle. Geoffrey Hayes presented Rainbow from 1973 until the program ended in 1992. More than 1,000 episodes. To generations of viewers, he was stability. He was the one person who would be there every afternoon. Then the franchise ended. The institution evaporated, and the security vanished with it. Typecasting became the trap, and not in a pleasant, nostalgic way. Producers could see Geoffrey, but many couldn't see beyond the cheerful presenter from Rainbow. Serious acting work became difficult to secure. Even though he'd performed in dramas before the children's series, when the offers stopped, he did what people rarely spoke about. He stacked shelves in a supermarket. Later, he drove a taxi. Passengers sometimes recognized him. Yes, he was. And now he was driving them to appointments. This wasn't a story of reckless mansions or wild spending. It was colder than that. A long-running television institution ended, and the industry simply moved on. Hayes eventually returned for nostalgic appearances and advertising work. He remained genuinely loved by generations of viewers. But his story proved that being known by almost everyone doesn't mean being protected by anyone. The Rainbow ended, the cameras moved elsewhere, and one of children's television's most trusted figures had to rebuild an ordinary working life. Timothy West, the prestigious illusion. A distinguished voice, a commanding presence, a career stretching across stage and television made Timothy West appear to belong at the safest level of British acting. He starred in major dramas, played powerful historical figures, and later won an entirely new audience through Great Canal journeys alongside his wife Prunella Scales. The public watched them navigate waterways together. His life looked rich in achievement, affection, and professional respect. Then the probate reports arrived after his death. The estate was far smaller than viewers would have imagined. This is an important moment to pause here, not because West was destitute, but because his story destroys a specific fantasy that viewers hold about television careers. The assumption is straightforward: decades of work, national recognition, significant roles cirque vast personal wealth. Acting rarely works that way. Fees arrive project by project. Tax, agents, travel, housing, family costs, and the long periods between jobs they accumulate. West continued working into old age, but the final figures showed a modest estate with specific gifts to family members and a theatre charity before the remainder passed to Prunella. It would be false to say he died with literally nothing. The point is different. It destroys the fantasy that national recognition automatically becomes financial fortune. West possessed something more lasting than money, respect, craft, and a marriage admired by millions. Financially, the final record was surprisingly restrained. A grand career can look like a palace from the outside while leaving only a modest room behind. Paul Daniels' The Vanishing Act. At his peak, Paul Daniels didn't merely appear on television. He seemed to own Saturday night. The Paul Daniels magic show ran for years. His catchphrase entered everyday speech: "You'll like this, not a lot, but you'll like it." Stage work, television fees, business ventures, everything suggested a magician who had successfully transformed fame into lasting security. When he died in 2016, the financial picture was substantially less dazzling. Probate reports placed the net value of his estate at just under £500,000, after liabilities and costs said to exceed £1 million. I need to be precise here, that's not poverty. It would be dishonest to describe it as zero. Yet compared with decades of prime-time success, sold-out performances, property ownership, and the earning power once associated with his name. The remaining sum looked like the final act of a fortune that had dramatically shrunk. Part of the explanation lay in the ordinary pressures of a long entertainment career: tax, business commitments, property costs. Part of it came from professional decline when his BBC show ended in the 1990s. Television tastes changed. Younger performers arrived. The man who once dominated the schedule became a nostalgic figure rather than a weekly national event. His final years contained love. His partnership with Debbie McGee was genuinely warm. But the numbers carried an uncomfortable lesson that applies to hundreds of performers of his era. A magician can make objects disappear for entertainment. Time, debt, and changing fashion can make a fortune disappear for real. Christopher traced the Blue Peter collapse. Before Blue Peter badges, daring challenges, and famous pets became national institutions, Christopher Trace helped build the program from its beginning. One of its original presenters, he stayed for 9 years and helped create phrases and habits that would shape British children's television for decades. To young viewers, he represented confidence and adventure. Off-screen, one decision destroyed the security he'd earned. Trace moved into a film company called Spectator, working as a writer and production manager. The business failed after roughly 2 years. With it went his life savings. In 1973, the former face of one of the BBC's best-known programs was declared bankrupt. The contrast was almost cruel enough to feel scripted. Children remembered him as the presenter who showed them how to make, build, and explore almost anything. Off-screen, his own financial future had collapsed beyond repair. Work didn't stop completely, but it changed sharply. Regional broadcasting, shifts in a pub serving drinks, factory work, taxi driving, the glamour of national television replaced by wages and survival. He later made nostalgic returns connected with Blue Peter. But the original platform never again became a stable career of the same size. His story is particularly unsettling because the disaster didn't come from decades of excess. It came from a failed business venture and the belief that television success could be carried into another industry. One collapse erased years of savings. By the time he died in 1992, the pioneering presenter had lived through a fall that few children watching him in the 1960s could have imagined. Warren Clarke, detecting financial failure. The heavy coat, sharp stare, and impatient authority of Detective Superintendent Andy Dalziel made Warren Clarke one of British television's most recognizable dramatic actors. Dalziel and Pascoe ran for 11 series. He also appeared in Coronation Street, A Clockwork Orange, and countless character roles spanning decades. From the outside, financial safety appeared certain. After his death in 2014, the probate records shocked admirers. His estate was valued at just over £13,000. Debts reduced the usable value to almost nothing. Reports linked part of the damage to money invested in the 2013 action film The Numbers Station. The project didn't produce the return he'd hoped for. What may have seemed like a creative opportunity became a costly mistake. This is where the entertainment industry becomes genuinely merciless. An actor can spend years earning good fees without receiving the ownership royalties or permanent salary that viewers imagine. One weak investment, several obligations, a stretch of reduced work, and the cushion disappears surprisingly quickly. Clarke's fame remained intact. Audiences still knew his face. His bank balance told another story. There was no public spectacle of collapse while he was alive. No dramatic television interview announced that the fortune had gone. The revelation arrived through legal paperwork after his death, when the performance was over and the numbers could no longer be hidden by reputation. Warren Clarke left an enormous body of work. Financially, the final page was brutally small. Nicholas bore the estate that wasn't. A zero on a probate document can be more shocking than any television plot could manage. Nicholas Ball spent more than half a century acting. He became best known as Private Detective James Hazel in the late 1970s series Hazel. He also appeared in EastEnders, Footballers' Wives, Red Dwarf, and numerous films and dramas. His face crossed multiple generations of British television. After his death in 2024, reports said the gross and net value of his estate in the United Kingdom were both recorded as zero. That figure doesn't necessarily reveal every possession or financial arrangement he ever had. Probate documents reflect where assets were held, whether property was jointly owned, whether liabilities existed. Even with those cautions, the symbolism was severe. A working actor with hundreds of credits reached the end with no declared UK estate available for distribution. Ball's career illustrates a truth that viewers rarely see: familiarity is not the same as ownership. Actors are paid for days, episodes, contracts. Broadcasters and production companies often retain the long-term value. Repeats keep a face alive on screen, but they don't always keep money flowing at the level the public expects. Years of ordinary expenses continue even when major roles become less frequent. Nothing about Nicholas Ball's screen image suggested financial emptiness. Hazel was confident, stylish, streetwise. Later roles kept him visible and respected. Then the final paperwork delivered an ending stripped of music, dialogue, and drama. Zero gross, zero net. It wasn't proof that his life lacked value. It was proof that a lifetime of television fame can end with a financial statement colder than any critic's review. Euan Macintosh, The Office, without security. One quiet look at the camera was enough to make Euan Macintosh unforgettable. As Keith Bishop in The Office, he turned awkward pauses, dry answers, and a love of Scotch eggs into comedy that survived long after the series ended. The program became internationally celebrated. Its cast entered television history. But being part of a cultural phenomenon didn't guarantee Macintosh a secure income. After The Office, he found smaller roles in Little Britain, Miranda, and other productions. The steady breakthrough many expected never arrived. Work became irregular. In 2016, he was declared bankrupt. The news exposed the enormous distance between being recognized everywhere and being employed enough to pay every bill. Macintosh later used personalized video platforms, recording messages for fans who still loved Keith. There was something both warm and painful in that second act. The character that had trapped him in the public imagination also became one of the few reliable tools he could use to earn directly from it. He didn't reject the role, he embraced the affection surrounding it and found a way to keep moving. His death at 50 was widely mourned. Colleagues remembered his kindness and comic timing, yet the financial collapse remains part of the story. The Office was built around the boredom and insecurity of ordinary employment. Behind the scenes, one of its most memorable workers faced a harsher version of that uncertainty in real life. Euan Macintosh became immortal in television comedy. But immortality on a streaming screen doesn't produce permanent financial protection. Tony Slatterie, the quick mind's long fall. Speed was Tony Slatterie's superpower. On Whose Line Is It Anyway, his mind seemed to move faster than the cameras, producing characters, jokes, and songs before anyone else had found the idea. He became a fixture of British comedy. Panel shows, films, it all looked destined for decades of success. Then the momentum turned inward and began tearing his life apart. By his own later accounts, severe mental health struggles, alcohol dependence, and heavy drug use consumed both his stability and his money. Work became harder to sustain. He withdrew from public life for long periods. In 2020, he was declared bankrupt. The performer who had once invented entire worlds in seconds could no longer control the real one surrounding him. His return was brave rather than glamorous. Documentaries and stage appearances showed a man trying to understand what had happened, supported by his longtime partner, Mark Michael Hutchinson. Audiences saw flashes of the old brilliance, but also the cost of years spent in crisis. After Slatterie died in 2025, friends organized fundraising connected with funeral expenses. A final indication that the wealth people assumed had accompanied his fame simply wasn't there. This isn't a simple tale of irresponsibility. It's a portrait of how illness, addiction, and an industry that celebrates performers while they're profitable can all collide at once. Slatterie had once been everywhere. Yet visibility didn't create a safety net strong enough to catch him. His wit remained extraordinary. His reputation endured. Financially, the ending was painfully exposed. Willie Thorne, 3.5 million lost. Under the television lights, Willie Thorne looked calm enough to measure every angle on the snooker table. His smooth cue action, famous mustache, and later commentary work made him a familiar sporting personality for decades. Away from the table, another game was draining him systematically. Thorne spoke openly about a gambling addiction that cost him an estimated £3.5 million over his lifetime. The losses didn't arrive as one dramatic disaster. They came through repeated bets, borrowed money, attempted recoveries, and the dangerous belief that the next win might repair the last defeat. At one stage, he was said to owe around £1 million. In 2015, he was declared bankrupt. The man nicknamed Mr. Maximum for his breaking ability had reached a financial minimum. Television work and public affection continued. He appeared on Strictly Come Dancing. He worked as a commentator. He remained popular with fans. Yet each new fee entered a life already marked by debt and regret. Thorne later described the secrecy, pressure, and despair surrounding his addiction, warning others about a cycle that had followed him for decades. When he died in 2020, the story wasn't simply that a sportsman had spent too much. It was the story of a compulsion powerful enough to consume earnings from elite competition, broadcasting, exhibitions, and celebrity appearances. Snooker rewarded patience and calculation. Gambling attacked both. Willie Thorne could read a table with remarkable precision. He couldn't reliably predict the damage of the next bet. By the end, millions had passed through his hands, and almost all of it had disappeared. Hilda Baker, fewer than 10 mourners. Long before modern sitcom stars filled magazine covers, Hilda Baker had already become a national comic force. Her sharp timing, tiny stature, and endless verbal confusion made Nearest and Dearest a major hit success. She'd worked since childhood, survived music hall, built her own act, carried popular television programs. Fame had lasted for decades. Security didn't. A series of personal and professional blows weakened her later years. An accident damaged her health. Work became difficult. Cognitive decline gradually took away the memory on which performance depended. Reports also described financial misfortune, including theft by someone trusted to help her. As her condition worsened, the woman who had controlled audiences with exact comic rhythm needed increasing care. By the time she died in 1986, accounts described her as penniless and largely forgotten. Fewer than 10 people were reportedly present at her funeral. That small gathering stands in brutal contrast to the millions who had once watched her. Television had preserved the laugh, it didn't preserve the life behind it. Baker's story isn't only about money disappearing. It's about the disappearance of the support system around her. Age, illness, reduced work, isolation, they turned financial weakness into complete vulnerability. The industry that had benefited from her talent could replay the programs while she could no longer enjoy the recognition they created. Her catchphrases remained. The applause had no practical value. Hilda Baker spent a lifetime making Britain laugh, then reached her final years with little money, failing health, and a funeral almost as empty as the bank account she reportedly left behind. Terry Thomas Parkinson stole the fortune. Few screen personalities looked more comfortably wealthy than Terry Thomas. Tailored suits, polished accent, cigarette holder, famous gap-tooth grin. He perfected the British cad and carried that character from early television into international films. He worked in Britain, Europe, Hollywood. Everything suggested a man earning fees capable of funding a luxurious old age. Then Parkinson's disease began taking away the tools of his profession. The diagnosis arrived in the early 1970s. As his movement and speech deteriorated, roles became harder to perform and eventually stopped entirely. Medical treatment consumed much of the fortune he'd built. The decline was slow, expensive, and impossible to hide forever. Terry Thomas and his wife moved through rented accommodation before ending up in a small charity flat supported by the actor's benevolent fund. Friends who visited were stunned. The elegant villain who had played millionaires, officers, and charming schemers was now physically weakened and living with very limited means. In 1989, fellow entertainers organized a major benefit at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. Michael Caine chaired the event. Phil Collins appeared. Around 120 performers helped raise more than £75,000. The money allowed Terry Thomas to move into a nursing home where he died in 1990. His ending carried a cruel visual irony. On screen, he represented privilege so perfectly that audiences could almost hear money in his voice. In reality, illness had consumed his earnings. Charity had paid for his final care. The cad remained immortal, while the man behind him needed colleagues to rescue him from poverty. Rod Hull, the house that became a trap. Chaos made Rod Hull rich. With one arm inside Emu, he attacked chat show hosts, disrupted royal performances, turned a silent puppet into one of British television's wildest acts. The act traveled internationally, filled theaters, made Hull a household name. The same career that brought money also encouraged ambitious spending and a dangerous belief that success would continue without interruption. In 1986, Hull bought Restoration House in Rochester for £170,000. The historic property demanded extensive renovation. Bills grew. At the same time, an unpaid tax problem emerged after years in which his financial affairs hadn't been properly handled. Recession and property slump reduced the grand investment's value. The house that looked like a symbol of victory became a trap. By 1993, Hull had left the property. In 1994, he filed for bankruptcy while his production company collapsed with tens of thousands in debt. His wife and children returned to Australia. Hull moved into a modest cottage in East Sussex. He still worked through pantomime, commercials, and appearances, but the peak years were gone. The fortune had been broken. His death in 1999 came in an accident while he was trying to adjust a television aerial at home. The detail feels almost too symbolic. A man whose life had been built by television died while trying to restore its signal. The real tragedy had begun years earlier, when tax, property, debt, and fading demand stripped away the security Emu had created. Rod Hull once made powerful celebrities run from a puppet. He couldn't outrun the bills attached to his own success. Simon D., the fastest fall in British television. For a brief, dazzling moment, Simon D. appeared to represent the future of British television. D-time attracted enormous audiences. Celebrities wanted to sit beside him. His entrance in an expensive sports car turned him into a symbol of late 1960s cool. He was young, confident, paid like a star. Then a dispute with the BBC, followed by an unsuccessful move to ITV, turned one of television's fastest rises into one of its most famous disappearances. The collapse wasn't immediate enough to feel merciful. D kept trying to return. New programs failed. Industry relationships had been damaged. The public image of effortless success became impossible to maintain. His spending had been built for a continuing television salary. When that salary vanished, debts closed in. He was later jailed over unpaid rates and experienced periods of severe financial instability. For years, newspapers treated his decline as entertainment. The former king of the chat show reportedly worked in ordinary jobs, moved through uncertain living arrangements, watched other hosts occupy the format he'd helped popularize. Every attempted comeback carried the shadow of what had been lost. He died in 2009, far removed from the power he'd once held. Diana Dors, the glamour that was only scenery. Diamonds, fur, parties, Rolls Royces. Diana Dors sold the image of Britain's answer to Hollywood glamour. She understood publicity and turned herself into a national celebrity through films. Interviews, television appearances, the public saw wealth everywhere. Behind the display, her finances were far more fragile. In 1968, the illusion broke in court. Bankruptcy proceedings revealed debts of about £53,000 and assets of only a little more than £200. For the period, the gap was enormous. The glamorous possessions associated with her public image didn't add up to financial safety. Expensive living, tax pressures, complicated relationships, uneven career income, they had created a crisis no photograph could disguise. Dors didn't disappear. She rebuilt through character acting, cabaret, television comedy, and a willingness to laugh at the blonde bombshell image that had first made her famous. That comeback matters, because her life wasn't a straight line from riches to ruin. She recovered professionally, worked hard, remained visible until her death in 1984. Even so, the bankruptcy exposed how carefully manufactured celebrity could conceal near emptiness. One of Britain's most photographed symbols of luxury entered bankruptcy with liabilities vastly greater than her declared assets. Diana Dors proved that a star could look like £1 million while legally possessing almost nothing. Peter Adamson, the soap star who became a pension. The character was tough, flawed, deeply woven into Coronation Street's history. Adamson earned a regular television salary, enjoyed public recognition, appeared secure inside Britain's most durable soap. Then, controversy, dismissal, legal costs, and declining work dismantled the life built around that single role. After leaving the street in the early 1980s, Adamson found it difficult to regain steady employment. A damaging court case ended in a settlement, but carried heavy personal and professional consequences. Theatre work followed. The dependable income of the soap had disappeared. In 1991, he was declared bankrupt with debts reported at around £32,000. His later years were painfully modest. Reports said he relied on a state pension and benefits, living far from the status once attached to one of television's most familiar characters. When he died in 2002, he reportedly left only about £5,000 to his son. The number was small compared with the decades during which Len Fairclough had been welcomed into millions of homes. Adamson's story demonstrates the danger of a career tied to one program. While the role continues, an actor may feel permanently employed. Once the relationship ends, typecasting and scandal close doors simultaneously. Bob Grant, the buses stopped, so did the income. The loud arguments and comic disasters of On the Buses made Bob Grant one of the most recognizable sitcom actors of the early 1970s. As conductor Jack Harper, he appeared in a massive television hit and 3 successful film spin-offs. The program was repeated for years, creating the impression that its stars must have enjoyed permanent rewards. Grant discovered how misleading repeats actually are. When On the Buses ended, he struggled to escape the character. Producers saw Jack Harper rather than a versatile actor. Roles became scarce. Attempts to build other work never produced the same stability. Bills continued while income fell. Grant later spoke about depression and the crushing effect of professional rejection. He tried different paths: stage work, writing, running businesses. None restored the security of his peak. The painful part was that the public still knew him. He could be recognized in the street as a star from a beloved comedy, while privately confronting financial pressure and the feeling that his career had ended too soon. Grant died in 2003 after years of serious personal struggle. On the Buses represented a Britain in which the depot opened every morning and familiar workers returned to routine. Show business offered no such schedule. Once the series stopped, Bob Grant lost the job that had defined him and never found an equal replacement. Duncan Norvell, the catchphrase that couldn't pay bills. One catchphrase turned Duncan Norvell into a national sensation. With a playful smile and the invitation "Chase Me," he became a regular on variety programs, game shows, theater stages during the 1980s. His act was instantly recognizable. At his height, he could travel the country earning strong fees. Variety television changed. Bookings declined. Serious illness removed much of his ability to perform. Norvell suffered a major stroke in 2012, followed by further health problems affecting his movement and speech. A comeback became far more difficult than simply finding a new routine. Companies linked to his work were dissolved. Later reports described him as living in a modest home with very little money. The contrast between his peak and final circumstances was stark enough for headlines. He retained humor and pride, appearing in interviews, receiving support from friends and admirers. But the financial damage couldn't be separated from the physical one. Live entertainment depends on energy, travel, timing, the ability to command a room. A stroke attacks all 4 simultaneously. When television no longer provides regular fees, there may be no large pension waiting behind the curtain. Norvell died in 2024 after a career belonging to a vanished broadcasting world. Chris Sievey, the papier mokehead, A&D financial collapse. A giant papier mokehead made Chris Sievey famous, but it also hid the man whose finances were falling apart. As Frank Sidebottom, he created a strange, innocent, nasal-voiced character from Manchester who appeared on television, performed with bands, interviewed celebrities, and built a devoted cult following. Frank looked homemade because he was homemade. That charm concealed a career with little financial structure beneath it. Sievey was endlessly creative and often more interested in the next idea than in contracts, accounts, or long-term planning. He recorded music, made radio, designed games, produced art, performed wherever an audience would accept Frank. The character became culturally valuable, but much of that value never became stable personal wealth. By the time Sievey died in 2010, reports described him as penniless. His family faced the possibility of a basic public funeral because money wasn't available to cover the cost. Fans responded with donations, raising enough to provide a proper service. Later, supporters also funded a statue of Frank Sidebottom, turning affection into the financial support that the entertainment business had never reliably supplied. There's something especially haunting about a performer dying without enough money while leaving behind an image that can still sell tickets, books, documentaries, merchandise. Sievey had created intellectual and emotional wealth. He hadn't secured the ordinary kind. This pattern repeats across 17 more figures. Freddie Starr, variety star, reduced to financial uncertainty. Keith Harris, Orville's handler, bankrupt repeatedly. Charles Hawtrey, carry-on, regular who died with minimal estate. Max Wall's scandal destroyed his earning years. Tony Hancock, comedy's greatest mind, couldn't contain his own collapse. Lena Zavaroni, child star, destroyed by illness, eating disorders, and exploitation. Lynn Perry, Coronation Street's Ivy Tilsley, lost fortunes to gambling. Michael Elphick Boone's lead, alcohol consumption, matched his debts. Dennis Price Elegance couldn't hide bankruptcy. Paul Cataneo, S Club 7 star, sold his Brit Award because he needed cash. Leslie Grantham, EastEnders' Dirty Den, lost the security the role created. Barry Evans' good looks made him a star, then aged him out of work. Paula Yates, famous everywhere, protected nowhere. Each entry follows the same structural truth: fame filled the screen. It didn't fill the bank account. Careers ended. Industry moved on. Protection disappeared. Jeremy Lloyd, 200 million laughs, £60,000 estate. Few writers created more profitable laughter than Jeremy Lloyd. He co-created Are You Being Served? And Allo Allo, two sitcoms repeated internationally for decades. His scripts produced catchphrases, stage adaptations, overseas versions, characters recognized across generations. A creator with that record might be expected to leave a vast estate. Probate reports after his death in 2014 suggested something very different. The gross estate was reported at a little under £60,000, with liabilities apparently reducing the net figure so severely that newspapers described him as dying penniless. The exact structure of rights, trusts, and jointly held assets may never be clear from a headline. The publicly recorded sum was startling beside the continuing commercial life of his programs. Lloyd had enjoyed an eventful life: marriages, travel, acting, periods of high spending. He also belonged to an era when writers could sign away valuable rights or receive payments that looked generous at the time but offered less protection decades later. The programs continued generating value. That value didn't remain in his personal estate. His case may be the clearest example of the difference between creating wealth and owning it. Audiences still buy box sets, stream episodes, attend productions inspired by his work. The jokes remain assets for companies and broadcasters. The writer's final probate record was smaller than the price of many ordinary London flats. Jeremy Lloyd filled department stores and wartime cafes with comic life. He created fictional worlds that refused to die. Financially, the creator proved far less protected than the creations. Alex Higgins, the Hurricanes' final weakness. No player brought more danger to televised snooker than Alex Higgins. The Hurricane played quickly, argued fiercely, made the sport feel like live theatre. His 2 world titles helped transform snooker into mass television entertainment. Prize money, exhibitions, endorsements, packed halls should have created a comfortable future. Instead, Higgins lost the house, the money, eventually much of his health. Fines, bans, court cases, heavy spending, addiction, they damaged his earning power. Tax problems reportedly cost him his luxury home in Cheshire. Relationships collapsed. Work declined. The champion who had once electrified the crucible experienced periods of homelessness and severe poverty. By his final years, friends and supporters were helping him with basic needs. Illness made the decline harsher. Treatment for throat cancer affected his ability to eat and left him physically frail. Photographs of the thin, weakened former champion shocked viewers who remembered the restless young man racing around the table. He died in 2010 at 61, with reports describing him as effectively penniless. Higgins had not been a careful ambassador or disciplined saver. yet reducing his ending to bad behavior misses the larger pattern. Television helped turn an unstable, brilliant sportsman into a product because his unpredictability attracted viewers. The same unpredictability later became a reason to withdraw opportunities and protection. The Hurricane earned fortunes in bursts and lost them through chaos. His trophies survived. His famous clearances survive on video. The money didn't. Jockey Wilson, back where he started. A council estate boy, became world champion, earned prize money, toured Britain, then returned to almost the exact place where the journey had begun. Jockey Wilson's rise was one of televised darts' great stories. He won the world title in 1982 and again in 1989, becoming a working-class hero whose nervous movement and fierce concentration made every match feel personal. Money arrived through tournaments and exhibitions. It didn't remain. Poor management, heavy spending, health problems, the unstable economics of early professional darts, they steadily reduced his earnings. By the mid-1990s, reports said the money had gone. Wilson left the sport, returned to Kirkcaldy, withdrew into a one-bedroom council flat. In 1998, he was declared bankrupt. Disability allowance became his supporters. Diabetes, arthritis, serious lung problems limited his life. He avoided interviews and rarely appeared in public, turning away from the fame that had once surrounded him. The television champion became a recluse within walking distance of the world he'd known before success. Wilson died in 2012, aged 62. The ending carried no mansion, business empire, or comfortable retirement funded by championship glory. It brought him back to the same kind of council estate from which he'd escaped with his titles. Darts now offers major prizes to leading players, partly because stars like Jockey Wilson helped make it television entertainment. He performed during an era when spectacle grew faster than financial protection around its players. Peter Wyngarde, Jason King's financial collapse. At the beginning of the 1970s, Peter Wyngarde was not merely successful. He was a phenomenon. As Jason King, he wore extravagant clothes, inspired fashion, received mountains of fan mail, became one of British television's most distinctive sex symbols. His image sold confidence, luxury, total control. Within little more than a decade, that image had been financially destroyed. Wyngarde bought a farm in Gloucestershire for £53,000. His income fell sharply as his television career declined. A public conviction in the mid-1970s badly damaged his reputation during an era far less tolerant than the present. Roles disappeared. The property became a burden. The lifestyle built around peak earnings could no longer be supported. In 1982, Peter Wyngarde was declared bankrupt. Contemporary reports described him as unemployed and living on social security. The transformation could hardly have been more extreme. Jason King had moved through expensive rooms as though the world belonged to him. The actor behind the mustache was now relying on benefits while creditors examined what remained. Wyngarde later returned for occasional roles, conventions, renewed cult appreciation. Fans recognized how boldly he'd constructed his screen persona, but the financial recovery never recreated the height of his fame. Bankruptcy remained the official marker separating the fantasy from the man. Peter Wyngarde's television character represented abundance itself: clothes, travel, attention, charm, power. The fall removed each layer until only the performer remained, unemployed and financially dependent. He didn't leave the smallest recorded estate on this list, and he didn't literally die with empty pockets. Yet no British television legend more perfectly demonstrated how a dazzling public identity can hide complete financial collapse. Jason King looked as though he owned the decade. Peter Wyngarde discovered that television had only lent it to him. Fame can fill a studio. It can sell millions of records. It can make a face feel immortal. It cannot promise security. These stories reveal the hidden price of typecasting, illness, addiction, failed investments, poor contracts, and industries that move on without warning. Which fall surprised you most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've made it this far, you clearly have an appetite for the real stories beneath entertainment's surface. Subscribe for more deep dives into British television history, Golden Age Hollywood, forgotten entertainment figures, and the machinery that builds stars and abandons them. We upload new videos 3 times weekly. Turn on notifications so you don't miss them. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.